Okay, let's unpack this. We've got these source pages, and they start us off. Picture a quiet Sunday morning. Maybe you're thinking coffee, peace, and quiet.
Yeah, a slow start. But it's on this small Mediterranean island at what seems like a pretty ordinary U.S. Air Force base.
Right, seemingly mundane, but then that quiet just shatters. There's a blip on the radar screen, way too close, shouldn't be there at all.
And then, boom! Violence, an attack. You hear that Mayday call cutting through the silence. It's really abrupt.
Incredibly sudden. It just throws you right into the chaos. These excerpts really drop us into the middle of it.
Absolutely. No gentle lead-in here.
So that's our starting point for this deep dive. We're going to try and piece together this whole narrative, starting with this, well, frankly, bizarre aerial attack.
And follow it through all the layers, right? International intrigue, surprising connections.
Exactly. Connections between people, events, even bits of history that you wouldn't expect to link up. It's like pulling on one weird thread.
And seeing where it leads. Okay, so who picks up that Mayday call?
It's Major Dirk Pitt and Captain Giordino. But they're not in fighter jets, which is the first odd thing.
No, they're in a Inuit craft. That's a National Underwater Marine Agency, a PDY Catalina flying boat,
Yeah.
adapted for water landings.
A research plane, basically, responding to an attack on Brady Field, which is only about 30 miles away.
Even though the voice on the radio is fading out like the operator's injured or something, they still head towards the trouble.
And that's when they see it. The attacker. Describe this plane.
Okay, this is where it gets really strange. It's bright yellow, highly maneuverable, the source says.
Yeah.
And it's marked with a Maltese cross.
Doesn't sound very modern.
Not at all. And Pitt recognizes it instantly. He actually shouts out, "It's an old German albatross."
An albatross, like a World War I biplane.
Exactly. A relic. Showing up over a modern military base. How? Why? Who's flying it?
Big questions right away. So there's this brief aerial confrontation. Pitt's wrestling with the big, slow PBY.
Trying to give Giordino a shot. And Giordino, poor guy, gets bounced around pretty badly back there.
Yeah, hits his head on the door handle of the toilet, of all things.
Ouch. But even dazed, he manages to grab a carbine, a .30 caliber, and put some rounds into the albatross's engine.
Damages it enough that it starts trailing smoke, has to limp away.
But just before it vanishes over the island, the pilot does something, well, unexpected.
He pushes up his goggles
Yeah.
and salutes Pitt. A crisp salute.
Like some kind of weird old-world chivalry in the middle of attacking a base.
It makes no sense. And as the plane disappears, Pitt mutters this name. And this is key. You got to remember this name. The Hawk of Macedonia.
The Hawk of Macedonia. Okay, that definitely sounds like something out of history, not a modern-day event.
Exactly. It haunts Pitt.
Yeah.
He can't sleep that night. Keeps seeing the plane, the salute. And then it clicks.
What clicks?
A memory. A photograph he saw once in the Imperial War Museum in London. Lieutenant Kurt Heibert, nicknamed the Hawk of Macedonia.
The same name.
The very same. A German ace from World War I. 32 victories. But here's the thing. He was presumed lost over the Aegean Sea way back in 1918.
So, wait, is Pitt thinking this is the same guy, flying his old plane 60 years later?
That's the chilling possibility, isn't it? How could a ghost from WWI be attacking a U.S. base today? History isn't just background here. It's suddenly the core mystery.
Yeah, the past is very much alive, it seems.
So Pitt's mind is racing. Next morning, he's walking on the beach, trying to clear his head, and he runs into this woman, Teri, described as striking, half Greek, half German.
And during their chat, something happens. Something small.
Very subtle. Teri points out a glint of light way up in the rocks, maybe 200 feet off. Pitt sees it too.
But he just kind of dismisses it, which seems unlike Pitt, usually.
It does. And maybe he's distracted because he's also noticing other things. Tire tracks on the beach.
Not from a car, right?
No, too big. From a truck. And he puts it together. Teri must have been followed down here. But here's the puzzle. He didn't hear a truck leave.
How does a truck manage to sneak away without making a sound? Another odd detail.
Right. A glint of light, tire tracks, no sound. Pitt's collecting these little inconsistencies. They don't fit.
He files them away mentally. Okay, so where does he go from the beach?
He heads back to the Omamei research ship, the first attempt. Goes to see Commander Gunn. And Gunn is, let's just say, not having a good time.
Yeah, the sources say he's pretty frustrated. They've been having all sorts of equipment problems.
Constant failures. Expensive deep-sea cables snapping under stress levels they should easily handle, like way below their safety rating.
And it's not a clean break, is it? The cable's frayed over a long distance.
Exactly. Like something's deliberately damaging it. Sabotage.
Sabotage. While they're trying to do what exactly? What's their main research project?
This is almost comical given the circumstances. Gunn is totally focused on finding this rare fish called the teaser.
The teaser fish. Right. Supposedly a living fossil from the ancient Sea of Tethys.
Yeah, potentially represents like an early mammal or something. The descriptions are wild. Some artists draw with webbed feet, even fur.
Fascinating science, sure, but...
But Pitt's dealing with WWI biplanes and mysterious trucks. He's got zero patience for Gunn's fish obsession right now. He sees it as a distraction while their ship's being actively targeted.
It does seem completely disconnected. A weird fish, sabotage, a vintage plane attack. How do these things even relate?
That's the million-dollar question at this point. And the connections, when they come, are really unexpected. Which brings us to dinner.
Dinner.
Pitt gets invited to Teri's villa for dinner. And the atmosphere there is, well, let's just say tense is an understatement.
You meet Teri's uncle, Bruno von Till.
Yeah. Big guy, shaven head, imposing, always has this huge white German shepherd with him. Pitt gets this immediate villain vibe from him.
And the villa itself had weird touches, right? Like that model submarine.
Exactly. A German U-boat model prominently displayed in his elegant study. Very strange. And von Till starts talking.
About what?
About Kurt Hybert, the Hawk of Macedonia. He recounts the story of Hybert's supposed death in WWI in detail. The British balloon trap.
Knowing a lot of detail there. Maybe too much.
Pitt thinks so too. It feels like a performance, or maybe a warning. So Pitt decides to push back. He asks von Till straight up, is Hybert connected to that albatross attack? Did he maybe spend the last 60 years hiding out right here on Thasos?
Bold move. How does von Till react?
His face stays blank, but the sources say his hands start trembling. That's all the confirmation Pitt needs. This guy is involved. Deeply. Pitt tries one more angle, suggests maybe von Till's after sunken treasure Nuame might find. Just fishing for a motive.
But von Till shows no interest in treasure.
None at all. So it's not about simple riches. Then things get really chilling.
How so?
Von Till tells Pitt to leave immediately and to never see Teri again. Basically a direct threat.
Okay, message received.
But as Pitt's leaving, von Till adds one more thing. He says he expects another flight of the yellow albatross soon.
Whoa. So confirming the attack wasn't random and the plane they shot down wasn't the only one, or maybe wasn't the end of it?
Exactly. And then he locks Pitt in the villa.
Locks him in. Just like that. Okay, this guy is definitely playing for keeps.
Pitt realizes von Till fully intends to kill him. He's trapped inside, and his only weapon is that small knife he managed to keep hidden.
So he has to escape.
Yeah.
And the way out is through these ancient corridors beneath the villa.
Yeah, described as a labyrinth. Dark, confusing, dangerous.
And he's not alone down there, is he?
Nope. First thing he runs into is that massive German shepherd. Von Till insisted on him.
Leading to a fight?
A brutal one. Pitt manages to kill the dog with a knife, but he gets badly mauled in the process. Deep claw marks across his chest.
So he's injured, exhausted, lost in this underground maze.
Stumbling around for hours in the dark, getting scraped up, falls down some stairs, cuts his nose. The sources paint a grim picture. But he's furious now.
Rage is keeping him going.
Pure rage. He wants out, but he also wants to get back and, well, the source says murder Von Till. He's pushed past fear.
And while he's searching for an exit, does he notice anything else down there?
He does. He finds dead ends, gets desperate, but then he hears a faint sound. A humming.
Humming? Like machinery.
Yeah, like an electric motor, maybe generators, coming from a crack in the rock somewhere. Another small detail, filed away. His lighter fluid runs out, plunging him into near-total darkness.
It sounds absolutely harrowing. And then there's that other detail as he finally gets out.
Right. As he escapes the labyrinth, finally finding a way out, he hears something behind him. A single gunshot, echoing from back inside the tunnels.
But the sources don't explain what that shot was?
Nope, never explained. Just hangs there. Another loose end.
Okay, so Pitt makes it out. Battered, bleeding, but alive.
Makes it back to the first attempt. He must look like hell, but his mind's clear on one thing.
The immediate danger.
He tells Commander Gunn, urgently, the Albatross will attack again. Gunn's probably skeptical, right, after the first weird encounter?
Understandably. But Pitt's right, isn't he?
Dead right. The attack happens, comes right out of the sun this time. Pitt, injured as he is, helps direct the defense. They fight it off.
And Pitt wants answers from that plane.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Orders divers down to the wreck of the Albatross they shot down. He needs proof, needs to know what's going on.
And while that's happening, more people arrive on the scene.
Yeah, things get even more complicated. Inspector Zacinthus shows up, with a Colonel Zeno and this big, limping guy named Darius.
And they bring the truth bombs.
Big time. Zacinthus reveals who they really are. Interpol, Narcotics Division.
Ah. So Bruno von Till isn't just some eccentric history buff with a dark side.
He's running a massive heroin smuggling operation, using his shipping company, Minerva Lines, as a front.
And the method, that's the really wild part.
Totally ingenious, in a criminal way. He's using these highly modified submarines, attaching them to the keels of his own cargo ships.
So the drugs travel underwater, completely hidden, bypassing all normal checks. Incredible complexity.
And suddenly all those problems Commander Gunn was having make sense. The sabotage on the first attempt.
It wasn't random. They were getting too close to finding Von Till's underwater operation.
Exactly. And Gunn's Teaserfish project.
Just a cover story. A legitimate, expensive scientific project to explain a new Meme's presence in the area and distract from what Von Till was really hiding.
The sabotage was meant to scare New Neme off before they stumbled onto the real secret.
Okay, so now there's a conflict, right, between Zacinthus and Pitt.
Big conflict. Zacinthus wants to play the long game. He wants to wait until the ship carrying the drugs, the Queen Artemisia, reaches Chicago. Bust the whole network.
Makes sense from a narcotics perspective. Get the distributors.
But Pitt argues it's too late for that. He points out that British and Turkish ships have been tailing the Queen Artemisia since Ceylon. Von Till must know he's being watched.
So waiting just gives him time to ditch the cargo or find new buyers.
Precisely. Pitt says they need to hit Von Till now, while they have the chance.
And it turns out Pitt was right about Von Till being alerted.
Yep. News comes in. The Queen Artemisia changed course, got boarded, and guess what they found?
Just the fish.
Just the teaser fish. The cover story. No heroin anywhere. Von Till was one step ahead.
Which proves Pitt's point. Wow, the tension must be sky high.
Off the charts. Zacinthus actually threatens to arrest Pitt and Giordino, just to keep them out of his way while he sticks to his failing plan.
But Giordino has something to say about that.
Classic Giordino. He just calmly reveals he's armed and asks Zacinthus which draw he'd prefer to see. It basically shuts Zacinthus down. They're not backing off.
Okay. So the smuggling plot is out in the open. But what about Teri? Where does she fit into all this deception?
Pitt confronts her again, pushes her harder. He shows her a photo maybe of that submarine model from Von Till's study, linking it to the smuggling.
And then he drops another bombshell on her.
Tells her he knows she isn't really Bruno von Till's niece. The real niece is safe back in England.
So who is Teri, really?
She's Interpol too, sent by Zacinthus, but her mission was different. She was supposed to be spying on Von Till's other activities, things beyond just the drugs.
Other activities. Like what the sources don't quite specify yet, do they?
Not explicitly at this point, but it suggests Zacinthus suspected more was going on. And suddenly, those beach details click into place.
The glint of light.
That was Zacinthus signaling Teri. And Darius, the big limping guy who arrived, was Zacinthus.
He wasn't really with Zacinthus.
No. He was Von Till's spy. He saw Teri meeting Zacinthus on the beach and tipped Von Till off.
Incredible. So Von Till knew Teri was a spy all along.
Seems like it. He played her, fed her misinformation, probably guessed Interpol would focus only on the drugs and miss the bigger picture.
And Teri's reaction on the beach when Pitt showed up.
She thought Pitt was sent by Von Till to kill her, because Von Till knew she was compromised. Zeno showing up interrupted whatever explanation she might have given Zacinthus.
Yeah.
It's layers upon layers of manipulation.
Von Till sounds like a master manipulator. But Pitt has one more piece of the puzzle, doesn't he? The biggest one.
The ultimate revelation. He tells them Bruno von Till is Kurt Heibert, the Hawk of Macedonia, the WWI ace.
Okay, wow. So the historical connection wasn't just a clue. It was his actual identity.
But it's even darker than that. Heibert isn't just a WWI hero gone rogue. He's a wanted Nazi war criminal.
A war criminal? What did he do?
Convicted in absentia at Nuremberg. The sources mention horrific crimes like loading Allied prisoners of war onto old ships and setting them adrift in the North Sea, hoping Allied bombers would mistake them for legitimate targets. Truly monstrous stuff.
My God. So he leveraged his WWI fame, became a U-boat commander in WWII, committed atrocities, escaped, and then used that U-boat knowledge
to devise this incredibly sophisticated underwater smuggling system. He used his shipping company, Minerva Lines, as a front, hid out on Thassos, rebuilt the villa over those old ruins,
and built this criminal empire hidden behind the facade of a respectable businessman and the ghost of a long-dead war hero.
It all comes together. The vintage plane wasn't just a whim. It was maybe a nod to his past identity, or maybe even a functional part of the operation we don't fully understand from these excerpts.
So Pitt realizes von Till must have a base nearby, connected to the villa.
Has to be. That labyrinth, the humming sound, it points to a hidden operational center on the coast, linked to those tunnels.
Time for another dive.
A new UMA dive team goes down. They find a tunnel hidden behind an artificial kelp forest leading into a huge underwater cavern.
The hidden base. And von Till is there.
Waiting for them, him and Darius.
And Darius gets some payback.
Yeah, he shoots Pitt in the leg with a Luger pistol. Seems Darius didn't appreciate being roughed up during Pitt's escape or losing the dog. So Pitt's down, injured again. But he confronts von Till.
Lays it all out. The war crimes, the identity, the smuggling.
Everything. Face to face. And just when it seems like a final showdown.
Rescue arrives.
In style.
Yeah.
Giordino, Zacynthus, and Zeno burst in the captured submarine.
They brought the sub into the cavern. That's amazing.
Yeah. Zeno's up on the conning tower of the machine gun. They basically turn the tables completely. Giordino saves the day again.
And Pitt connects the cavern to history too, right?
He does. He figures out the cavern, the labyrinth. It's all part of an ancient Phoenician gold and silver mine. Over 2,000 years old. Later, the Greeks thought it was a mythical labyrinth.
So von Till built his modern criminal base inside ancient history. And that humming Pitt heard.
Must have been the generator for an elevator shaft von Till installed.
Yeah.
A hidden lift connecting the villa directly down into the cavern. That was his secret entrance exit.
Wow. Ancient mines, Nazi war criminals, submarines. It's quite a mix.
Absolutely. Von Till's guards surrender. The immediate threat is over.
But the sources mention another ship, the Queen Jocasta, arriving around then.
Yeah, it hints the operation isn't totally dead yet, but these pages don't detail that capture. Instead, the narrative jumps.
To where?
Washington, D.C. Bureau of Narcotics headquarters. Pitt's there, using a cane, thanks to Darius's parting gift, along with Giordino. They're meeting Zacynthus again.
And Zacynthus has news about the Queen Jocasta.
He does. He was captured. Turns out, they used the Captain Pitt had grabbed back on Thasos. Apparently, Pitt threatened him with a rusty knife to get his cooperation.
Huh. Sounds like Pitt, so the captain helped them.
Figured some fishing boats, yeah. But the submarine wasn't with the Jocasta. It was caught separately.
Where?
Galveston, Texas, of all places. Hidden underneath a fish cannery built out over the water on pilings.
A fish cannery? How'd they find it?
The giveaway, according to Zacynthus, was a big shipment of sugar delivered to the cannery.
Sugar? For a fish cannery? Makes no sense.
Unless you need it for something else happening there. Maybe supplies for the subcrew, who knows. But it tipped off surveillance.
Clever. And what about von Till? Or Hybrid, I should say. What happened to him?
Zacynthus tells them he was captured and then killed by German authorities just 4 days earlier. They kept his death quiet.
Killed. Not arrested and tried again. Maybe the Germans didn't want the embarrassment of revealing a major Nazi war criminal had been operating freely for so long.
Could be. The story wraps up with commendations. The bureau director congratulates Admiral Sandecker from UMA, acknowledging their rather unconventional help.
And Pitt gets a souvenir.
Of course. He presents Admiral Sandecker with that yellow Mini Cooper they saw Teri driving back on Thasos.
Wait, the source says Mini Cooper here, not Maybach. Okay, Mini Cooper it is.
Right, sticking with the Mini Cooper. Teri's even there, driving it when Pitt hands it over. His line is perfect. To the victor belong the spoils.
A nice little bow on top. But what about that gunshot Pitt heard in the labyrinth?
Still unexplained. That detail just hangs there in the source material we have. A final bit of mystery.
Definitely keeps you thinking.
It really does. I mean, this whole deep dive started with such a strange event, that vintage plane attack.
And it led us through WWI history, Nazi war crimes, advanced smuggling tech, deep-sea science used as a cover, double agents, ancient mines. It's incredibly complex.
It's a fantastic example of how seemingly random bits of information, a photo, a weird fish, tire tracks, a glint of light, a sugar shipment, can all slot together.
If you look closely enough and follow the threads, yeah. It shows how a bigger, darker picture can be hidden by just noise and distraction.
Information overload can definitely hide things in plain sight, but careful attention, connecting the dots, it can reveal almost anything.
Makes you wonder what else is hidden out there.
Exactly. Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. This story shows a notorious war criminal building a massive, high-tech criminal enterprise hidden for decades behind a legitimate business and ancient ruins. So how many other major operations, or even significant historical figures, might still be concealed today, masked by perfectly mundane fronts, just waiting for someone to notice the connections that don't quite add up.
That's definitely something to think about.